of them and everything else. That's what that project pertains
So
to.
nothing to do with service then?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
I'm not here to convince you to vote for TSPLOST. What I'm here for is to tell you the facts, to give you the information that is so vitally important for you when you make that decision and that vote on July 31st. This particular issue just did not come about this past legislative session. It was voted on 2 years ago by the legislative members, and the bill has been in the writing process for over 4 years. So it was not taken lightly by the legislative members, nor by the governor, former Governor Perdue and or now Governor Deal. This particular bill was important to the fact that the state of Georgia needed to continue in a progressive mode and in a move forward that gave us an economic engine to do what's necessary to keep up with the rest of the country and to further ourselves in a position where they want to follow us. Now, this bill, some of you may not know much about it and how it became a law. But for the last 2 years, we have been collecting, we, the Department of Transportation, get our funding from the federal fuel tax and your state fuel tax. 97.3% of the budget of the Department of Transportation comes from the fuel tax. The other remaining percentage comes from the general funds of the state of Georgia. And that's what we get from Georgia, $6 million a year. Our budget has been in the past 3 to 5 years ago was like $1 billion, $200 to $300 million a year. And that was due to all of the projects that had been projected and started, and a lot of them now have been finished. Our budget now, today, is right at $900 million. So we were at a decrease of close to $400 million in our budget for our transportation needs. Now that decrease did not come because you didn't pay your taxes, or that you didn't do what was right as far as the state of Georgia goes in making sure that they had the funding to do it. The reason for that shortage came from you buying less fuel, traveling less miles, and buying more economic cars. The fuel consumption has gone down considerably over the last 2 years due to the efficiency of the automobile industry and the lesser miles that are driven by the people. And I say lesser miles because the transit has gotten so important in and around the Atlanta area, where over 6 million people live. That's where the bulk of the tax would come from based on what the needs are for them. So they quit driving automobiles and they're buying more efficient automobiles. So if we reduce our income from the standpoint of our federal fuel tax and our state tax. So something had to be done. And legislative members looked at quite a few options. And this was really one of the best, if not the best, to come up with. And it is a consumption tax. It is a user tax. It is a tax. You know, I don't like them either. I didn't vote on them down at Richmond County Commission office. Just like your commissioners here face those same issues. And they don't like them. They don't vote for them. There's some people sitting on the commission in Richmond County, I won't mention names, but they'd love to see the tax reach the full millage rate to where more funding could be given to the general funds and they could use those funds for somewhat personal, if not regional purposes where they live. You don't have that problem here in Richmond, Columbia County, and I hope you never will. But when the state looked at what we could do to enhance our transportation needs and infrastructure, they turned to a tax. Could it be called another word? Possibly. Could it be something else that maybe would be unidentifiable as, quote, a tax? I doubt it. No matter what you call it, there's a cost to you and your pocketbook. But they voted on what they felt like was the very best opportunity and the best avenue to drive the economic engine for the state of Georgia. And that's infrastructure, and that's transportation. So this tax is going to be collected over a 12-region area in the state of Georgia. Our region is called the CSRA region. This is strictly Columbia County into your projects. We made up of 13 counties in the CSRA region. The main counties are Richmond County, Columbia County, and McDuffie County. Those are considered to be the donors, the contributors of the funding. In addition to that, they will be the recipients of the largest percentage of the funds that come from the collection. And the way that's going to work is that hopefully everyone that lives in Collier County, which is only about 1,800 people, or down in Hancock County or Burke County, when they need to buy goods or need to buy items for their household, they either come to Richmond County, Columbia County, and spend their dollars. So those people are recipients just as well. Not only is the money being collected in the counties where they shop, but they're given the opportunity to get some of it back to them on a formula that has been designed. And that formula is 75% of the funds that are collected go to the designated projects that have been identified by the round table of this region. That round table was selected from the elected officials as well as lay people in the communities. And they in turn selected the projects that had been suggested and or been on their drawing board for some time. And those projects are the ones that went forth for the round table to decide to present to the entire package. And that's why you have 8 projects in Columbia County. Those 8 projects were selected by your round table. And they were the ones that said, these are the most important projects that we need to be looking at over the next 10 years. Some of these projects may have been thought of and been talked about and been even discussed in commission meetings or other types of meetings, and had been approached to the DOT as to we need these projects and we need to get them done. But without the proper funding, without the proper dollars, they were probably told, and I know because I was when I went up there from Richmond County, we were probably told that, well, you're going to have to get in line because this project that you've got right now may come up in 2015 or 2016. Well, it may not come up for the next 10 to 15 years. And what happened was that the DOT, the state of Georgia, the squeaking wheel gets the grease. 6 million people control an area that means more to the entire government than what our little area and our little region does out here. So we were kind of left behind or pushed on the back burner to a certain extent. But this bill, this tax, gives us an opportunity to step to the front burner. We get to control the collection of those dollars, of those pennies. Not only do we control those pennies, we have selected those major projects, the 75% that will be spent in Columbia County, and those funds will be spent accordingly. Now, those projects, like I said, just didn't get dreamed up yesterday. But they will be delivered, and they will be delivered on time. The only responsibility that the Georgia Department of Transportation has is to make sure of the deliverance and the beginning of it, and the completion of it. The DOT is not going to be responsible for going out and getting the bids or making sure that this contractor does the proper work. The only thing they'll do is they'll have your area, your people that are involved, your engineers of your county are the ones that will be responsible for this. And they will be accountable to the regulations and the requirements of the state, and if it has federal funding in it, any federal monies or any federal regulations that they have. The 25% remaining of the money collected goes for discretionary funding. Discretionary funding is used by the respective counties or governments to do normal paving, other type of infrastructure work that's necessary. And it's very important that this 25% discretionary funds go to these smaller communities, such as those that I mentioned. When you look at those counties, they have predominantly dirt roads, a few paved roads. But this discretionary funding is going to allow them to get more money than they've ever had before. They never had the funds to match the dollars that were needed to get projects completed either under state or under federal regulations. But this is going to give them that opportunity. So you're going to see better roads or better conditions of roadways throughout the rest of the state of Georgia. Not just the main arteries, such as the interstates, or such as main roads that come through your town. So that makes up that 100% of the collected monies. And how much money is being collected in our region? It will be $841 million. As I said earlier, Columbia County has 8 projects. You know how many Richmond County has? 81. Wow, man, where did they get all that? But you know what? Percentage-wise, collective-wise, participation-wise, it relates to the same as your 8 in this county. Well, that doesn't seem fair. They've got 81 and you've got 8, but they may have a project out there that they're paving or they're curbing or they're doing something with that may not cost but $45,000. And that's considered listed in that 81 projects. And those are the ones that need to be completed according to what they felt. They presented their list, and their dollars make up the same amount percentage-wise as to what their participation is, as to what your dollars make up based on your participation. So the whole region is involved. It's not just a county vote. This is a regional vote. If Columbia County elects to pass this, Richmond County elects not to pass it, McDuffie County passes, but we get a total count at the end of the day, and it passes, then the county that did not pass it is not penalized, because it's a regional effort. And they have to participate. You cannot opt out from the standpoint of a county. You cannot opt in once it's over. And if it is defeated, then there's a 2-year wait before you can request to go back to the legislature to ask them to put you back on the docket where you have the option to vote for it again. If it has been defeated very highly in that region, it's doubtful that the legislative members will allow that vote to come up again. If it's a close vote, I'm sure they would look at it favorable to let that opportunity come back. Projected out over a 10-year period of time. So we're looking at about $84 million a year. Yes,
I attended the briefing you gave on Friday over at the theater. And in that briefing, you mentioned that if a region opts not to participate, that this program says they will be penalized, and that part of the fees they would normally get are going to be withheld.
Well, maybe that's not the proper wording. If I used that, then I didn't mean to.
Okay.
And I'm not playing politician on you, what I'm gonna tell you, and I think you and I had a discussion afterwards.
Okay.
And that is that if a region does not pass it, and like I said, they got a 2-year wait period, then what's gonna take place is projects that you would like to see done, some of the, like these on the board, they are not gonna be moved to the front of the list, and you're not gonna be in a position to go ask for all of these projects. You may get one over a few years. You won't be penalized, but you're matching dollars. If it's a federal funded or any federal assisting given on that project, if it's a large project, we're gonna have to go and get federal assistance with it. And when I call a large project, I'm saying things that'll go from 10 million or more. If it's that, then we have to get federal help, and we have to use federal fuel tax money to do that with. But the matching dollars that the local community has to have can range from 10 to 20% nowadays. That could go up to as much as 35 to 40%. That may be the penalties that we're referring to. It's not a punitive damage, but it is, it's gonna be something that they're gonna look at other communities that have passed this bill that have lesser matching dollars, and they can use discretionary funding for their matching dollars in order to get that assistance. Yes, ma'am.
I guess kind of as a follow-up to that though, then how does that impact if the state of Georgia, under the regular budget process, there's an allocation of X amount of dollars? I don't know what the 6 billion or whatever it is, that's what you get for the state tax, highway tax, revenue fuel tax. If you have all these regions across the state that some pass it and some don't, wouldn't that change your project list that you have for that original amount of money? Because if this region now is generating, and I'm just gonna use our example, our region, let's say we pass it, and we are generating the $840 million to service the transportation projects, won't that mean that they now come off of your list for the state?
No, because you're gonna collect your money in your region. You're gonna have your projects in your region, and your money's gonna be spent in your region. So Atlanta is not gonna participate in your collected dollars at all. South Georgia is not gonna participate in your collection of your dollars at all. Your dollars are gonna be just like what you bring home with your paycheck. And you spend your money the way you want to, then this money is gonna be spent the way it's designated based on the project that you, the community and the region selected. Yes,
So right now, state tax is 4%. We have 3% SPLOST in Columbia County.
Right.
Is that correct?
that's correct.
Will this be an additional 1%?
Yeah.
So we're looking at 8%
Right.
tax for 10 years.
Right.
When do the other,
Okay.
when do the other three,
Okay,
They have
the other three,
time.
based on your SPLOST taxes, and I'm not sure if you all went out on a 5-year program or if you went out on a dollar amount program. A 5-year program. So yours will, your SPLOST tax will go away in 5 years. And you have to vote it on it, you have to vote on it again, to reinstate it. This is gonna do the same thing.
in
In other
10
words,
years?
$841 million that we're looking to collect in this region will stop at the end of 10 years. The law states that, the law says if you cannot collect another dollar after that 10-year period. However, if you collect $841 million in the 8.5 year, it stops automatically then. It's either the dollar collection and on the term, not based on what the original SPLOST was, to where you just had a designated amount, then you could go beyond the 5 years.
But in 10 years, you'll be back wanting us to vote on it again.
Pardon?
In 10 years, you'll be wanting us to pass it again because there'll be other emergencies that we have to take care of.
Well, you
It never
know,
goes away.
you might, but I won't be around here, I'm sure, to do that.
Fuel tax, we are collecting from federal fuel tax, And how much are we sending to federal government, and how much are we getting back?
Well, the federal fuel tax is, out at 16%, and our state tax is, 7.5%. So we're looking at collecting about a 25 to 26 cent sales fuel tax. Now, all of that collected under the federal fuel tax goes back to Washington DC. And then Washington DC says, we're gonna give you X amount of dollars of it. We don't control that. All we do is control the collection of it and send it to Washington.
So what you are collecting for the state is going to
It stays in
federal?
the state.
Okay,
The state fuel tax stays in the state.
okay.
We get a portion of that.
What do you need a portion?
Why would you do it all?
Yeah.
Well, because the general funds use 1% of that. The Georgia government, the state funds use 1%. We have been asking to put all that back in. This year, under Governor Deal, it was taken out, something like 4 or 5 years ago by Governor Perdue to help balance their budget during that time.
Right.
And Governor Deal has reviewed, looking at putting it back in our transportation fund. So we would have the full 5% coming back in.
Okay, I still want to follow up to that.
Okay.
So you are collecting 16% fuel tax for federal government, that goes to federal government.
Correct.
Do you have a concrete figure, how much we are sending them? You know, what is the dollar amount, and how much of that are we getting back?
That we don't know. I don't know what that percentage is. I don't think anyone knows. But I will tell you one thing. Every dollar we get back from the federal government and from the state, 33% of those dollars go to service the transportation debt, bond debt, that has been spent on roads and bridges and everything else over the last, say, 10 or 15 years. Now, whether you like it or not, the major loop at Bobby Jones and I-20 was $181 million. We just don't come out of pocket to pay for something like that. It was bonded, and it was probably bonded over a 15-year bonding period. So that will be reduced every year until it's paid off. That's where we are right now. Yeah, Dave, excuse me, I'll give you that code.
I just want to make a statement that we're a dollar state in the Department of Transportation.
Public transit and enhancing it and expanding it from North Augusta right up through Columbia County. I was told a couple of years ago that, and I noticed this, it says Augusta Public Transit Operations and Maintenance, that would not include public transit service. Can you expand on it? Was I told wrong, or, you know, when I read this here, to me that would sound like public transit.
Well, what that is, as far as the Richmond County list you're referring to?
Right,
Showing
it's on
showing the Augusta Transit, that's operations and facilities. They are building a new facility out off of Bobby Jones at Mike Paget Highway. And they're joining in effort with the Board of Education to have a one location for all of their buses and the maintenance of them and everything else. That's what that project pertains
So
to.
nothing to do with service then?
No, ma'am.
AnibalShow.com